Terror in Moncloa. The judge gives Aldama back a copy of the data from his mobile phones where she keeps messages from everyone. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Precautionary Measures with breaking news. Because the magistrate of the National Court, Ismael Moreno, who is investigating the Coldo case, has agreed to return a copy of the data from Aldama's mobile devices. Those phones where the businessman keeps messages from everyone, and this is a direct quote from him. We have that information and we're going to share it on screen as we always do. And as always, if you haven't done it yet, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel. We just need one last push to reach 142,000 subscribers. And we already have on screen this image of the businessman Victor de Aldama arriving for one of his statements, and with a mobile phone precisely, right? One of the mobile phones that Aldama has. And now we're going to talk precisely about this information. Judge Ismael Moreno gives Aldama a copy of the contents of his mobile phones, which contain, and this is a direct quote from Aldama, messages from everyone. The head of the Central Court of Instruction No. 2 of the National Court, Ismael Moreno, has ordered that businessman Victor de Aldama be given back a copy of the contents of the mobile phones that were seized when he was arrested as part of the Coldo case. You already know that the Coldo case was split. One part went to the Supreme Court, another part stayed in the National Court, and the Supreme Court part has already been tried. Victor de Aldama was convicted, but his sentence was not carried out. Precisely because of his cooperation with the justice system and because of that agreement with the prosecutor's office that Victor de Aldama reached. Thanks to all the documentation and information provided which has helped clarify the facts. Well, now we are referring to the part of the Coldo case that is still under investigation by the National Court. It should be remembered that the businessman had repeatedly requested a copy of the material, which was seized during the search of his home in order to more specifically address the legal cases in which he is under investigation. In fact, regarding his mobile devices, he even said that they could prove numerous contacts with high-ranking officials in Pedro Sánchez's government. And Aldama even said verbatim, "I have messages from everyone except Santos Cerdán." Pay attention to that phrase, "I have messages from everyone except Santos Cerdán." In a court order we have had access to, the head of Central Investigative Court No. 2 of the National Court orders the return of a copy of his 3 mobile phones seized in February 2024. Just as you're hearing it, a copy of his 3 mobile phones. Afterwards, it's important to remember that Aldama was detained again, but as part of another case, the hydrocarbon case, and was placed in provisional detention in October of that same year. After reaching a cooperation agreement with the prosecutor's office, he left prison and precisely began to testify, right, in the National Court. And when he was released from prison, we all remember, and after Pedro Sánchez claimed that he didn't know Aldama, Aldama said that Pedro Sánchez had Alzheimer's and that he shouldn't worry because he would have evidence on everyone. What does Judge Moreno's order say? Well, it literally says, "Having received the previous report from the Public Prosecutor's Office, dated July 21, 2026, which does not oppose providing the person under investigation, Victor Gonzalo de Aldama Delgado, with a copy of the 3 mobile phones seized at his home on February 20, 2024 specifically, an iPhone 15 Pro, an iPhone 13 Pro, and an iPhone 11 Pro. Let it be included in this case file for the record. Having reviewed its content, the return of the devices is not appropriate, and, if applicable, an official notice will be issued." An official letter is addressed to the police unit handling the case, requesting that they send a cloned copy of the contents of the aforementioned devices, and once it is verified, the delivery of the copy to that party will be ordered. This is what Judge Moreno orders. That is, the device itself is not handed over, but rather a copy of the data extracted from the device, which is what really matters in the end, right? Because that's where all the information is, all the messages, the WhatsApp chats, etc. This way, the businessman will be able to obtain the documentation stored on his mobile phones, where, as he has warned on several occasions, he would be keeping damaging material on people close to the Prime Minister. In fact, several ministers have claimed not to have had any contact with him before a relationship with the businessman himself was proven. The former minister Reyes Maroto, the former minister of industry, said she did not remember having contacted him before no less than 42 messages exchanged between them came to light. You know that here line comes with no consequences. The same thing happened with the Speaker of Congress, Francine Armengol, who said she didn't know him, and then it was revealed that they had held a meeting together with several executives from the airline Air Europa. In this regard, other socialist leaders, such as the Minister of Territorial Policy, Angel Victor Torres, and Maria Jesus Montero, have been implicated for their alleged connection with Aldama after claiming that they had never met him. And this is the information from Enjora, the judge of the National Court, Ismael Moreno, who is investigating the scheme, has agreed to give the businessman Victor de Aldama a copy of his 3 mobile phones seized during the investigation of the Coldo scheme. In this way, Aldama will have access to all the messages he exchanged with members of Pedro Sanchez's government, and that could implicate them in the corruption scheme that is still being investigated in the National Court. There is terror in Moncloa, therefore, at the thought of Aldama having access to those messages and the information that may come to light from now on. Of course, this decision by the National Court Judge Ismael Moreno is very important. Let me remind you that he is also investigating in a separate case the illegal financing of the Socialist Party. And now, after receiving the report from the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, he does not object to Aldama having a copy of the contents of his 3 mobile phones. The devices themselves are not handed over, but all the information contained in those 3 mobile phones is, and of course, this is going to put Pedro Sanchez's government in a tough spot. And this is the information we revealed on Medidas Cautelares. That's all for this edition of Medidas Cautelares. Any updates regarding this process, this case, and all the others that are currently cornering Pedro Sanchez's government? Because corruption doesn't stop day and night. You'll have it here on Medidas Cautelares. You already know that to support this community, you can become subscribers and also members. Members for €4, less than €4 a month, like the Chosen tier, and for less than €8 a month, like the Supreme tier. You can also make contributions via Bizum at 627-556-370, 627-556-370, 627-556-370. I already mentioned in a video that we are preparing some major updates for next season, and I'm sure you're going to love them. So any contribution you can make will be well received because it's being invested. It's being invested as it should be. As I always say, if you like the video, leave your comments and opinions. You can share it with whoever you want, family, friends, co-workers. And hit the like button because you know this helps increase its reach, so that more YouTube users can have access to this information. And that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing, because with everything that's happening, it's easy to get lost. And that's why we have this Medidas Cautelares channel. As I always say, the most important thing is that this information reaches everyone, because information is power. See you soon.